Morning, everybody. Welcome to the first of the Maritime UK Solent's Virtual Careers Fairs. We have had some slight technical issues this morning, but do bear with us. Please do remember to post your questions in the chat box, which we will respond to after the presentation. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Kerry Foster and Simon Jinks from the workboat industry. Gentlemen, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kerry Forster, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Workboat Association. And co-presenting today with me, I have one of our members, Simon Jinks from CREGS Training. You want to say hello, Simon?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm Simon Jinks from CREGS Training down from Plymouth, where we do training in Plymouth and in London and all over the UK for people in the workboat industry.
Okay, so when I first looked at trying to start a career in the maritime industry, I had in my mind pictures of ships, as you would see in Southampton, coming into port, loading or unloading, and then leaving again, probably to start a journey far offshore. To me, I wasn't ready for travel. I wasn't looking at spending many days at sea on board a vessel without seeing land. But I knew that I was really enthusiastic to work in the maritime industry. So I thought that today, what would be good is to show you all a couple of pictures and some video and have a talk with you all about what can be on offer within the small commercial vessel sector that many of you might see working around ports and harbours or in the coastal areas of the UK and also working around the world. So this is a presentation on behalf of the Workboat Association. What are workboats? So workboats are generically commercial vessels under 500 gross tons, and they're usually engaged in offshore and inshore contracting, although from time to time this can change. What we mean by offshore and inshore contracting is that they're vessels which are asked to come to a location and perform a set of work, mainly of specific type. So it could be subsea activity, it could be construction support, it could be towing, it could be survey work. And I'll show you some examples of some of these types of works in the following slides. So here's the first of our slides. This is a fast response vessel. It's very typical of a standard small workboat. They're very durable, very hard. You'll find that these are normally crewed with a couple of people, maybe 2 or 3 people. They work in areas where they might need to do some movements of personnel or some small parts of equipment or survey work, or generally helping in a day-to-day business around a construction project. This is another type of fast-moving vessel. This is what we call a crew transfer vessel, and you'll often see these being used in the offshore wind industry, for example, or some other construction industries, and they'll be moving technicians and workers around construction sites to get them from shore out to where their construction area is. This is one of the older vessels that you'll probably see in the association. And this is actually an ex-military vessel, which is reused. And here you will see that in Scotland, delivering plant and machinery out to highlands and islands and remote areas. So it's a valuable transport link. This time a much bigger type of landing craft. This one's been specifically built. At the moment, you'll see here that it's laying mooring equipment, actually in the sea farm business in Scotland. But they've got large decks, they're a bit heavier. Typically on this type of vessel now, we'll start to see maybe 4 people working on board of 5, and we'll start including engineers as well. And you'll see on this, the large cranes on board means that there's quite a variety of jobs and utilization of this vessel, and also the jobs for the personnel on board. This is a small harbour workboat or tug. You'll see it's normally 2 people on board. There's only space for 1 person inside and 1 person sitting down. These will get used for all kinds of duties around a small harbour or port, from helping to push around vessels, move around pontoons, install anchor spreads or chains, or maybe it will even help in oil response or emergency response as well. This is a much larger harbour tug. So this is the kind of vessel that you'll probably see in Southampton, moving the ships up and down the river, and helps them come from at sea up in the confined areas of navigation, and then bring them alongside in port, especially when the weather is not very nice and they need some additional assistance. This kind of vessel, again, you'll probably see around 4 people working on board, including an engineer, 2 deck ratings, and a master. Work takes us to a variety of places. So the first photo you would have seen in the beginning, it was based in Rotterdam. And this picture here is based in London. So you'll see here a vessel being used to push a barge along the River Thames. And the types of vessels that we're seeing now, we know have changed in design a lot, but this one changes in design quite a large amount from what we've already seen, and it's got an extending wheelhouse. So this is another type of pushing tug, pushing barges again around the River London, but a very different design. And of course, that brings some different challenges as well. The vessels can be small, they don't have to be big. So a lot of commercial work is done in these small, lightweight vessels. This vessel here is working in the aquaculture industry, so fish farming up in Scotland again. It's used to take around members of the team to the different fishing areas, and also to move small parts and equipment. They are also used as rescue vessels as well in this area. This is a larger vessel in the fish farming industry. See here the cages floating in the water. This vessel comes alongside and does the lifting of the nets inside the cages where the fish are being held. And they also use these for delivering food and veterinary products as necessary as well. This vessel will also have a team of around 5 to 6 people, because it will need more people on deck to help with movements of equipment. And this is probably one of the largest vessels as well under the code. This vessel has up to 10 berths on board, so it's places for 10 people. Mainly, again, deck will have 2 people for navigation, so a master and a chief mate, and you'll also have an engineer permanently on there as well. Tugs are used around the world in different shapes and sizes, as here supporting a floating dredging pipeline, and here supporting a fixed pipeline. And this is a vessel type that you might be familiar with if, in the Solent area. There's a few companies running these, and this is a very powerful workhorse of the workboat industry, with large cranes on board and a large deck, which is very strong. If you're interested in real heavy movement of equipment and physical engineering, then this type of vessel, which we often call a multi-cat, might be for you. So who works on board the boats? Well, we mentioned a few of the roles and how many people work on board the boats, but we'll take a look. So we've got your navigation team. Here you'll see a master with the chief mate working at a time of reduced visibility. So both of them are on watch. This might look a bit like a spaceship to you, but this isn't how all vessels look on the inside. For example, here we have a vessel, as we saw earlier, with only space for 1 person there, and quite simple controls, although it's still a very responsible and rewarding job. Crew on board the vessels range. We see here the people working on, we call on the navigation team, or the master here, or the chief mate on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side here, we've got a member of the deck team, possibly an engineer, working on the forced ventilation system for the engine rooms. What else do the crew do? Well, the crew might be there to help and assist people on and off the vessel. So this is a pilot boat, and you see the crewman standing at the front of the vessel there. They'll be coming along the side of a ship, much like this, and that person will help the pilot get on board the vessel once that ship has departed for sea, and it will bring the pilot back into shore again, so he is ready to go on board the next vessel and take that vessel out to the sea as well. The crew might be involved in physical rope work, like here in this mooring launch. The crewman here is storing the ropes as the ropes are being dropped from the ship, which has been towed away from the dock and is proceeding to sea. It might be also emergency response, as we see on the left. This is a training demonstration of how to evacuate an injured person from an offshore wind turbine. And you can see the crew here assisting that person onto the vessel to be taken, theoretically, to shoreside for more emergency work. It could be hospital, it could be on-site first aid, for example. On the right-hand side, we see a picture here of crew transfer works. It's cargo on board the front of the vessel you see there next to the crane. This is a working a construction vessel, a construction ship on the right-hand side. And you'll see there the seafarers departing the ship onto the crew transfer vessel, ready to be taken ashore. Maybe they're flying home. And the other role we have on board is the engineers. So we see here engine rooms on board the workboats. Although the boats are small, they're still plenty big enough to walk all the way around, quite a large engine. And there's some quite sophisticated pieces of equipment on board the vessels as well. But this also ranges to what we see on the left-hand side with a smaller, more manageable engine. And then what we're going to show you now on one of the larger workboats is a short video made by an engineer about what a day in his life looks like on a tug vessel. So you see here the engineer starting the engines up. The engine takes a while to warm up because it's a large industrial engine. And you'll see in a second the numbers on the screen move as the engine builds up momentum. There's lots of monitoring to be done in an engine room. So when we think about being navigating of the vessel, the master is sitting in the bridge with lots of equipment to look at and dials and screens telling them all the information they need to know about their surroundings and the vessel's navigation. The engineer has a similar amount of work and responsibility in the hull of the vessel where the mechanics are. And this might be from monitoring the speed of the propulsion or the output from the engine, the temperatures and the pressures as well. So this tug vessel is leaving the port of Immingham in the Humber. You'll see here going out the dock. And it will be shortly assisting a vessel to come into the harbour. It might be doing this routine 3 or 4 times a day. As we said earlier, you can expect crews of 3 or 4 people on board the vessel. And that normally includes one apprentice in most cases, or a lower educated member of crew who is working towards getting their certificate of competency. You see here the tug helping the ship into the harbour. And just because the engineer has got a responsibility for the mechanics of the vessel doesn't mean that they also don't help out on the deck as well, or again in the navigation and the wheelhouse. Here you'll see that the tow rope is being removed from the ship as the ship is ready to take to sea under its own propulsion. And you'll see that the engineer here helps out the deck team by going forwards and removing that rope from the water so that the tug can return to port ready for its next job. Let's skip forward now to the end of the day. The tug returns home, and there's much to do at the end of the day as well. Unfortunately, with a vessel like this, we can't return to shore and turn the keys off and go home. there's many things we need to do to ensure the vessel's ready for its next day's work. So for the deck crew, that will mean cleaning the deck, maintaining the equipment on the deck ready for use the next day. And for the navigation team, it will mean writing the reports, completing all the checks of the navigation equipment, and ensuring that the vessel is fit for sailing with all its daily reports undertaken. The engineer will return to the engine room. He will turn the engines off. He will record the level of data that's been taken from the engines and the running equipment, including the pressures and the temperatures, and he will check for any signs of any faults that might have occurred during the day as well. Once that's all over, the crew will finish their day's work. They'll test the systems to make sure that they're working again, and they'll turn everything off, ready to start the day again tomorrow. So, is it a career? Well, I'm going to give you a case study, and embarrassingly, this case study is me. So here's a picture of me the year that I left school. It's an embarrassing picture, but I was keen. I was a very keen yachtsman. I really enjoyed sailing. It was my favorite hobby. As I said earlier, I knew I wanted to work at sea, but I didn't want to work at sea for long periods of time. Now, the first boat that I got my work on was this. It's a harbour workboat, and it's used for a multiple of activities, including pilot vessel work, security around the harbour, incident response in the harbour, moving yachts and pontoons around. And this is where I first learned what it was like to work commercially on board a vessel. Now, this is my first day as I got my first job away from home on a workboat. I was really happy. It was my first full-time job. Previous to this, I'd been earning around £9,000 a year as an under 21 worker. And when I got this first job, I was earning £100 a day. So this made a really big difference to me, and I was extremely excited. It was a number of years ago, and so you'll be happy to know that wages, in fact, have actually risen since then. So when I looked at that time about what I wanted for a career, definitely the financial support was something that was really important to me. Well, not very long later, a matter of around 2 years later, I got my master's certificate, and this was the first vessel that I was captaining. So if we think about becoming a captain in large ships, well, that wasn't for me, but I was able to be captain of this. At the time, I was 22. So I was quite happy to be in my own responsibility. I had 2 people working on board with me, and I felt very proud of myself. And this picture here is me, happy face, going to work every morning. I was working in my hometown where I'd grown up. I was able to work very hard, which I enjoyed the challenge of. I also got many days at home because I was working shift patterns, 2 weeks on and 1 week off. So I spent a whole week at home every month. I was with my friends. I had money in my pocket. I had a nice car. I was saving to buy a house. So for me, when I looked at a career at that age, I was achieving quite well. Then after around 5 years, I moved to work on the shore. And now you might think that working on shore when you've been working on board vessels might be quite boring. And there are some parts that are. But for me, things got exciting very quickly. The company I worked for bought a new vessel which was being built, and I got to oversee the build of this vessel, and I also ran the commissioning of it. This is the vessel, and this is the second one we built, which got slightly bigger. And in fact, on this, which was the commissioning day, I was actually the captain of the vessel. And this picture is of me driving the vessel. And the vessels got bigger. I started working on larger versions of workboats, over 500 tons, and now getting into the shipping industry. And I did get to work on board ships as well, again in management. So I wasn't working as a part of the crew on board. I was there to give advice to the crew on implementing safety and structure to these vessels. And for me now, well, I no longer work in the management of vessels. I'm now the Chief Executive of the Workboat Association. That's the trade association that looks after the interest of vessel operators. I've been in the industry for around 16 years. I'm very happy with my career choice. It's taken me all over the world. It's given me fantastic pride in being recognized internationally and also in well-known media. I get to work with some fantastic people. And for me, if I look back now about whether it was a career, today I can still honestly say that yes, working in the workboat sector has been a career for me. But where can you start your career? And this is where I'm going to hand over to Simon, who can hopefully give you some advice and talk about some of the training that can be done to get you starting in the workboat industry correctly yourself. Simon.
Great, thanks, Kerry. Ways into the industry. Well, probably the most structured way and simplest way to get into the industry is through an apprenticeship. And there's apprenticeships for if you want to skipper a boat, if you want to crew a boat, or if you want to be an engineer on a boat. And the apprenticeships last about 1 to 2 years. And how would you normally go about that? Well, you can either contact a training provider or get to be put in contact with a company, or work or get a job with a company and then get put straight into an apprenticeship. When you're on the apprenticeship, let's say that you're doing an apprenticeship to skipper a boat or to crew on a boat, then what you would learn is navigation. So you'd learn you'd know your way all around navigational charts and tides. Vessel driving, so you do courses on how to drive all different types of boats. We'd start off with fast power boats and then look at larger boats with 2 or more engines. We'd look at engineering, so how to maintain and overhaul any of the engineering on board. Emergencies, so how you would handle emergencies. And what to do if somebody fell in the water, or what you would do if there was a fire on board, how you would react, or if you're a skipper, how you would react and keep your crew safe. So that's the sort of thing that you would do, and that's how it would work. The apprenticeship would last for 1 to 2 years, depending on which apprenticeship you were doing. And then that would end up with a formal qualification. And that formal qualification would then be recognised throughout the industry so that you could work on all different types of boats. Now, I note that we're a couple of minutes from the end of our discussion, so I was going to stop here and see if there was any questions.
There's none so far in the chat, Simon, so we have until 11:50. So if you're happy to continue, that would be great. Thank you.
That's absolutely fine. So within the apprenticeship, when you're doing an apprenticeship, you actually go away usually for about 1 or 2 weeks. So you're working for the company, and then you'll come down and you would do 1 or 2 week blocks with a training provider. And during that time, you would stay away from home in local accommodation, and then what we would do over that time is we would train you on all of the different subjects. When you're going through those subjects, you're given a record book, and that record book, actually, you're in charge of that record book, and what you're doing is it's like a big diary, and you're using that diary to check that you are learning all of the correct bits of information that you need to fulfill your apprenticeship. And we and your employer and the skippers of the boat all check that, and we sign it off to make sure that it's all okay and it's all in line with what the apprenticeship needs to happen. So those are the sorts of things and how you would then demonstrate that you've got to about the right level for your apprenticeship. What then happens is you get a final exam. So during the apprenticeship, we ensure that you're learning all of the right material. And then right at the end, you have somebody come on board your vessel and they do a thing called an endpoint assessment. And that's when you have to put into practice all of the things that you've learned in front of a person, an examiner on board the boat. So it's a very practical based exam, and that's why it really tends to suit people with a bit of a practical outlook on life.
Yeah.
Kerry, is there anything to finish off on?
Yeah. So thank you very much, Simon, for talking a bit there about getting into the training. The question maybe some of you will have is, but how do I get a job in the industry and work towards having that training and starting my career? Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that training doesn't stop when you first start your career. So here's a couple of pictures of what the Workboat Association has been up to with its members. The training continues. In fact, in the bottom right-hand corner, this is the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, the UK maritime regulators, coming to us for training in workboats. So it does continue and progress throughout your career. And here is one of our safety forums where we all get together 4 times a year to discuss what we've learned throughout the year to help support each other as an industry. So for you, you're ready to start your career, you're ready to go to sea in the workboat industry. If you were to go onto our website, you'll find here a list of all the members. There's over 130 listed members on here. If you have a look, it will tell you the location of those companies. There might be some names of companies you might know of. And it will also take you to a link to their website so you can see some of the vessels which they own and operate and some of the job vacancies they may have, or at least the contact details for their recruitment departments. And I would definitely suggest that if you're interested, to get in contact with some of these companies to find out more. This is my contact details. So if you do want any information further on how you could get into the industry or how an industry or apprenticeship could be supported for you, please let me know. We've got lots of members of lots of ranges of skills and interests. So I'm sure if you have any particular interest yourself, we can find someone matched who can help you. Thanks to people like Simon, we've got some fantastic training on offer for you. And I hope that we can welcome you into our industry and see you in the years to come. And that's it for us.
Thank you.
Thank you both, gentlemen. I found that really interesting, some great images, and just really to hear about both your experience and the opportunities worldwide, not just where we are here in the Solent, but across the nation, Rotterdam, elsewhere across the world. One last question, and I don't know if this is really for Simon or either you, Kerry. If a young person was thinking about an apprenticeship, what age could they do that? Is that a school leaver age, say 16, or college leaver at 18? And are there any subjects that they should be thinking at in particular, or is it interest? What is it a young person, a top tip really, more than anything? What should they know?
So from my point of view, the age to start an apprenticeship can be any age, so anything from 16 and above. And qualifications that it's useful to have when you leave school would be English and Maths level 2 and possibly ICT. But if somebody hasn't got that, if they've got an interest, then the apprenticeship can also help with providing English and Maths up to the correct level as well. So those are the key points really, is make sure that you work on some of those functional skills like English and Maths along the way.
Thank you, Simon. And just to reiterate, information is available here on the slides. And also, if you want to look at the Solent LEP website where you've booked on for the Maritime Careers Fair, you can find all the information there as well. Thank you, gentlemen, once again for your time. It's been fascinating. I've really enjoyed your session. Thank you so much.